Alrighty. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Binder, brought to you by Yippee, the only hospitality standards management system helping hotels bridge the execution gap in hotel operations, delivering excellence every shift, department, and property. Today we are joined by Thomas Steinhauer, 37-year Four Seasons veteran, who led some of the most iconic properties, in the world. Thomas's career is a blueprint for luxury hospitality leadership. GM at Four Seasons New York, GM at Four Seasons Maui, came back as a regional VP overseeing Four Seasons properties across Hawaii, Vegas, Los Angeles, Westlake. We're not done. Regional VP of Four Seasons Orlando at Walt Disney World, where he led the opening and operation of the resort. That must have been fun.
Oh, yeah.
Plus oversight of Miami, Palm Beach Surf Club, and Fort Lauderdale. Still not done. Before Four Seasons, cut his teeth on legendary independents like the Phoenician in Scottsdale, the Williamsburg Inn, and the Doral Golf Resort in Miami. Worked across three. Doral. Okay.
There it is.
I don't play golf, so.
No, it's actually funny. The name came from Doors and Al.
Oh.
The owners, the original ones that originally opened it up.
How did Dor get first? So you worked across three continents, from Vienna to Melbourne to Vail, and served on 5 boards. You just weren't running hotels. You built the operational memory that allowed them to stay great through leadership transitions, workforce turnover, and the unforgiving expectations of luxury. I like that.
Yeah.
So today's central question we'll answer is, how do you turn standards into something people believe in? And this is something that Adam's been pounding on me ever since I started working with Yippee, because it's hard to imagine. It's hard to execute. So we'll explore why compliance isn't hospitality, what breaks first when standards aren't visible daily, where leaders confuse empowerment, how to know if an initiative is real or just theater. So let's get into it. Thank you for joining us, by the way.
Well, nice to be with you guys. Nice to see you, Jason and Adam. It's an honor. I appreciate it. Just one small correction. I was for 37 years with Four Seasons. That was kind of, with all the other independents that I used to work with and independent restaurants and all that kind of stuff. So it was a build-up, and it was the last 25 years with Four Seasons. That was.
You're not 80.
That's steady. No, not yet. I feel like it sometimes, but it's okay.
Well, that's all that executing luxury. It'll age you. Adam, we don't have time for your bio, so
you don't need it. I'm just excited to be here.
Well, let's get into let's kick it off with what people misunderstand about standards in luxury hospitality. So, what is the difference between compliance and hospitality?
Well, you need a framework. And I think it's a very, very good way to go and set something up, is that you have a couple basic steps lined up that give you a little bit of a guide, as you go through service, or if you decide on product, or if you look at even behavior, that you kind of say, all right, look, here's kind of some of the basic things that are our checkpoints that we need to make sure we hit in order to get consistency. And yet you may look at it a little differently than I do. My experience is different than yours. We come together. I mean, to give you an idea, in Orlando, we had close to 1,000 employees. So you can imagine the amount of opinions and backgrounds that came into play with something like this. And then you say, well, I know you've got so much background in this, but in order for us to come across in a cohesive way, or that we meet those guest expectations on a consistent basis, we need a bit of a framework. And that framework is then, it's standards, and then it becomes in restaurants and kitchens, it becomes recipes, it's all that. This is something I can lean on. But if I go and I only focus on that, and I look every single day of how many of those we've hit, I just check the box. I take the creativity, the intuition, the what makes service great out of it. So how do you combine this, and how do I make this something that is something I want to believe in, is that I actually have to feel it. And it's that emotional piece that is not something you can just say, this is what it is. It is something that comes with you trying things out, you having successes, failures, and feeling good about what you do. And then you'll make the right decisions, but you have this guide on the side a little bit. If you get stuck, oh, should I go this way? But there it is. Rather than I'm just going to live for this checklist.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at this, and I love that, Thomas, is because when you look at hospitality, especially as an industry, there's so many moving parts. There's so much to do and to accomplish in a day. So many expectations that have been set, especially in luxury, right? I mean, every guest is walking in with saying, "Look, I've worked my whole life. I expect to earn great money and to spend great money on these amazing experiences." And we have to say, okay, what defines those? What should this experience look like, sound like, feel like? What makes it good versus great? Or, what are the various things? And by defining those, I think that is an essential part into our industry, but it can't be it's not everything, right? Just being like, okay, I did it. Okay, great. Good thing you did it, but that's still not hospitality, right? I mean, we can't ever confuse the checklist with the emotion, right? With the creation of the hospitable moment of, do you feel welcomed because I said welcome, or what did I do to make you feel welcomed, right? Like what were those steps? And I just really agree with, what you're saying here. And how do we make sure that the next step is then, okay, how do we make sure that we define those well enough and that we engage with them with enough empathy or with enough emotional engagement to make sure that they don't feel robotic, right? That they don't feel eventually like, okay, thank you, step, my pleasure, done. And really give us a sense of human that's behind the service.
It was actually funny. I just recently saw David Sedaris. He was promoting his new book, and he did a couple of things in regards to just in between. He's got these little, moments where he just gets into, well, here's what bothers me, and then he started to get all of a sudden into, when did this ever start? That whenever you walk into a store, it's now welcome in, and I'm like, okay, well, all right, somebody's just saying, it's welcoming you to the store, but this welcoming, what's always welcome? You go to Australia, nobody says welcome in. This is, I don't know, it just goes on and on and on and on. But he was so hooked on, don't give me a phrase that actually doesn't even make sense. And then you can kind of say, well, I can see that somebody says, you're coming into my store, you say welcome in. I can see, and it's it. But he's, there are, when I started to listen to this, and it's like, how many phrases do we say on a daily basis that we actually don't think about, and how does it really land with this other person that's in front of us? And it's arguable, is this a bad thing or not, but the point was the theme of watch what you say and kind of understand the situation that the other person is in right now. So if you just think about you arriving, I mean, okay, you come into Disney World or Orlando, and it was always amazing to watch these families with all these kids come. And they have just gone through a flight scenario. There was maybe a thunderstorm, which was not unusual in the afternoon happening.
Yeah.
And they are stressed out. They had to fight for the luggage and this and that. And they're finally here. And now if you think every single person would just have now a phrase to welcome them with, and they would all say, something that sounds almost robotic or not real. Do you really feel welcome? And then you have to kind of think about, what is it really that this person really wants in front of me? And kids are all squirrely and they're worried about everything. All they want is that somebody says, we've got you. Now, how do I say that? Respectfully, what verbiage do I use? That comes down to me. How do I sound sincere? And this is where this whole thing, where there was a big thing, not only with Four Seasons, but with everybody else, was this: be you, be yourself, be authentic in what you do. This became in hospitality a huge topic, right? Where it's like, how can I be authentic if you tell me what to say? On one hand, you give me all the phrases, you give me all the how I should behave, how I should look, how I talk to each other. You're making it so stiff and awkward. And then you can say, well, by the way, be yourself. You are not going to go and pay attention to who's in front of you and what is it they really want. What they really want at this moment is somebody says, listen, we've got all your luggage. Don't worry about it. Just come right in, check in. We've got all that set up for you. Somebody who goes and maybe gives something to the little kids in order to keep them occupied while the parents are checking in. Maybe there's a little distraction that we could have. Maybe it's a character or some of this kind that comes up and engages them. And all of a sudden the stress goes down, because it's not like I got to kind of get through this next process now in order to be able to finally get to my room. It is, you have landed the moment you drove in, and we have got you. This is where it's all about. Now, I got to give you the tools so here's what's available to you. You can do this. And I've got to make you comfortable at the same time that you can go out of the box to do things. I mean, don't do anything illegal. Don't do anything weird. Okay, please just, this is the be yourself kind of thing. There's a limit to everything. But the issue is just pay attention to who is in front of you and what they want. This whole experience is very different from somebody who comes into a meeting perhaps and is by themselves. They're maybe they have a presentation in the evening they have to give, and they just want to please get me through the process. Let me get up, get in my room, because I got to read up on this and then I got to go in. I don't want a lot of distraction. I don't want to have, a character coming at me and greeting me and whatever. I just want to get up and be done with it. That pivoting and the ability for me to make this natural requires that I have flexibility when it comes to these standards or these approaches that have kind of given us the consistency in one hand, but on the other hand, it makes us also inflexible.
Oh, a little fun story for me is when I was very young in my career, I was a part of the opening there in the Orlando property, and we had this standard, right? How do we help people feel welcomed and VIPs and all this stuff? And one of my jobs that I was responsible for was getting the amenity cards written and making sure all of them were stuffed and all this stuff. And I remember it was about a year in, and we had some guests that became regulars, right? They quickly had come back a few times. And I remember I was preparing for this, and I've got this huge card written, right? Oh my gosh, we're so happy to see you again, and thank you for coming back and your loyalty. I mean, it was the whole card. It really was. And Thomas Jazzy comes over and hands me a card from you, and hands me this card and says, "Oh, this is for this family." And so I was like, "Oh, good, I don't have to write it." Did I totally look at it because it was, an open thing? Of course it was. And it said, "Welcome back, Thomas." And I thought, oh gosh, just connected. And it was just so great, because I think it wasn't the first time, but it was such a good example of just, what do they really want? They just want to know and feel seen. They want to be recognized. I know you. I know you're here. Here's my card. Anything you need, whatever. And I think that there comes this question of, especially for me, was, when does my standard become theater, or when am I just going through these motions versus creating those authentic moments, right? Like truly being able to look and say, I'm sincerely engaging with you because I know who you are. I know what you want. Mm-hmm. I've always said that standards serve as our roadmap, or as our footpath to a successful experience. And look, if I don't know anything about you, I've never met you in my life, you've never stayed at our hotel before, great. let me take you down this journey of how our experience should be felt and try to get you some of these guidelines. But then you interact with guests that are there all the time, or it's their 60th stay with you, and they're not more or less important. They're just, it's different, right? You have to say, okay, great. How do I now interact with you and make sure you have those experiences that keep bringing you back? But also at the same time, I don't need to put you into the same chute or, same slot as someone that's never been here. I can treat you differently because I know you. I can see you with my hospitality eyes. And I think that that's just, it's such a critical part as we look into, how do we manage this? How do we manage standards? And it is really focusing on getting to know the guests, getting to know the purpose of the operation, and what's the intended experience of this, right? Like, what is it that I want you to feel when you're done, when you're leaving? How should you feel? How should you walk away? Okay, and what do I need to do in order to do that? And how do I execute it? So really love that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how great hotels preserve excellence, the execution thereof, amidst so much workforce churn or leadership change. It's got to be brutal. So when you stepped into a new property or region, what was a non-negotiable to preserve?
Well, I think it's interesting. The first thing that you have to make sure is that the people who are charged with executing this, because you can sit in an office and write all kinds of standards. And if you don't connect with what this person that is in front of that particular guest now, and remember there's different types of guests, different moods that they're in, different needs that they have, is able to execute truly. And it's just about, did you go down this list? Then again, as we said before, this is not going to work. But I think what's non-negotiable is, in order to make this happen, is the employee experience. And if you go and you look down at the first thing is like, okay, are we taking care of our employees? Are we doing what we say? Because I'm asking you to go and step in front of guests and do all kinds of things. But when you come in, did we take care of your uniform appropriately? Did we make it easy that you came in the back door and the changing, the cafeteria? Is that really a place where you want to go and take a break, or is it like, oh my God, this is the last place I really want to be in? And we've seen these kind of places. I tell you, there was another hotel that I used to work in, not Four Seasons. It was independent property, and I'll never forget when I arrived in the back. It's just this huge welcome. There's of course back entry for employees. There's welcome every employee. You're the best, and basically the whole thing was all about that everything stands and falls with you, and we believe in you, and this kind of stuff. And then you go down a dark corridor, a couple of steps down, and into the most dilapidated place where you can go change. And there was two vending machines in the back, and that was where you could get your lunch, and this is where you could go and take a break and sit in this dungeon of a place. And you're thinking, that's my welcome, right? And then you go into what the guest experiences, and then you ask me to make sure that everything is properly maintained and always perfect, from every perspective. It's two different levels. So the non-negotiable is that, what is it the employee experiences? And if they start out, and we have that the right way, and we are able to go and make you comfortable. Now, it's not going to be as luxurious as, a $5,000 a night suite or $12,000 a night, whatever. It is, however, you have all the basics that you want. The food is good. It is properly prepared. You have options. If you're a vegetarian, you're not, all these kind of things. So non-negotiable. The second thing that's non-negotiable is the communication lines. And I think that is where a lot is missed. If you don't have open communication lines between departments, first of all, and then amongst, let's say, the hierarchical structure, if that even makes sense, is that the people actually talk to each other. And I think what has always bothered me the most is if you get a sense in a property where there's a certain paranoia, and it is ingrained in some people to immediately get on guard when there's a senior manager coming through. They warn each other, that, hey, what it is. And it happened to me too. I mean, because you have people coming from all over the place, from different properties that they've had experiences in, first time in a hotel, whatever it may be, they don't know. So there is always, hey, we got to make sure that when he shows up, that everything is perfect. So, and then I found out that they were actually warning each other. It wasn't the radios. It was just via text and so forth, until I finally saw this. And then I had to kind of get them together and I said, look, this is completely ridiculous. If you feel on edge because I come through, then we're not communicating. So this was pretty much in the beginning. Did it happen maybe later on with a few people? I'm sure. I never assumed that there's any perfection. But the awareness of that is extremely important, because this is what gives you the ability to actually have open communications, open conversations. And why is it that they're so worried about something that may go wrong? Is because maybe there is a punitive approach. Maybe there is, oh my God, you just missed 3 out of 10 or whatever it is, and there is somebody who goes and holds you accountable in the worst possible way. Insecure mid-management, insecure supervisory, insecure employees. It all starts at the top. And if you don't have the ability to go and send a message across that, hey, you know what, we've got these standards, but if you screw up somewhere and you went out of the box and your motivation was, I want to do the right thing, but you actually went down the wrong track, what's the problem? There's no problem. Okay. Did you learn something from this? Now, if you keep doing the same stuff over and over again, then I gotta have to question your learning abilities. That's a different story, right? But if you go and you say, hey, here's what I want to say, this is what I thought I heard, but this really backfired on me, no problem. Okay. You know what you're going to do differently next time. Try it, listen differently, try to consider this and this. These communication lines are non-negotiable. And it is constantly that you have to reiterate that, and you have to go out and you actually have to walk the talk. And that means you have to be present, and you have to be out in that operation, and you have to kind of see what's going on. And to me, it was a quick question, but this is probably the core of everything when it comes to behavioral standards. Everybody sets the example. Again, it starts at the very top. If I expect people to be engaged, and I walk around the property and I have my phone in front of me, and every time, there's something comes through, there's always a text, there's another message, there's another thing, there's always another email, there's something that always comes at you. Tell me how many of them are really that urgent that you have to always answer. We know it's addictive, I get that, but the bottom line is, if you're in the hospitality industry and you're supposed to have everybody engage with people around you, it starts with you. So a general manager who walks through and looks at their phone when they're walking through the back corridor, where they come out through the scenarios, and it's like, I got this is very important. I got to just answer this guy, whatever it may be. You're losing it. You're missing it. And to me, the non-negotiable things is you remain engaged and you do what you do. And if you have something that really is that urgent, a call comes that you absolutely have to take, step aside, go somewhere, go into a corner somewhere where you don't see anybody else. Don't keep walking past all these people who are like, oh, okay, oh, he's busy, oh, he's busy. Oh. And then you can tell, oh, he's not in a good mood today. That's the next thing. So you have all this stuff that is a complete distraction. So it's very basic, but it's how would you feel if you walked by that person? That's what you have to think. And then it's how it starts.
Man, love that. It comes down to if you as a general manager or anyone, I mean, just imagine you walk by your front desk agent and they're walking by a guest on their phone, reading whatever, and oh, I'm sorry, this was important. More important than that guest that you just walked by or anything. Same thing, I think we have to remember goes for the entire hotel. The culture that we demonstrate is the culture that we, promote, right? Is saying, look, I need to be present. I need to be here. And I think that as we move up in our operation, of course, there's always going to be things to demand our attention and our time. But really what it comes down to, if we want to promote a healthy culture and if we want to create these positive experiences, we have to role model them first. And we have to be present in the operation to provide relevant, timely feedback, engaged, see what's actually the challenges are. I love that we have access to so much feedback in our industry. And we've got guest reviews that come through, Medallia or Qualtrics, right. And we've got, Google reviews, and we get, notes and all these things. All of this are things that we receive after the point of service, after everything's been done. But what is best is when leaders are engaged and during the points of interaction, when they can be there and they can see what the challenges are. And then when they read these comments, okay, this is what happens. They can come in with context of, okay, yeah, that really wasn't a great experience. That buffet really was cluttered and it didn't look good. And why, right? I was there, I was running stuff back and forth. But being involved and showing that you're there with the team, I think helps us not just, abdicate our responsibilities. It puts us on the floor. It helps us see with our own eyes what needs to be seen and what might need to be addressed, because otherwise it's easy to coach from the arm or from the couch, right? Like you can say, oh yeah, they didn't do this and they didn't do this. Well, great, but you should have been there and you could have been there and then helped and support it. That's great.
Yeah. And I think the other piece is that you have the tools, the tools that you need to have. I think the challenge is also, nowadays with all this integration of technology is, if you have to look at your phone in order to get certain things done, again, that's how you do it and when you do it and where you do it, instead of just walking through the lobby or walking through the back corridors and past everybody else, you need the tools. So if you're thinking about hot sauce or something like this, right? You go in and you're saying, I've got to go and just, I just saw this is broken, I got to put it in. Well, you use the phone, right? You use that to do it. But again, how do you use it? Where do you use it? That awareness, this is huge. So it would be a huge one to make sure that happens across the board.
100%.
Let's talk about consistency. Is really the hidden driver of reputation and guest trust, right? Day in and day out, week in, week out. What operational inconsistencies are guests most sensitive to?
Well, okay, I had the chance of being part of a small group years and years ago at the beginning with Four Seasons, when we tried to reduce the amount of standards. And we sat there because we had over like 1,400 or 1,500 standards back then. And we wanted to make sure that we get the core standards right, that are actually meaningful, that we are able to say, well, listen, there should be no more than 15 or something like this, or maybe 20 per department. Service standards, that is, right? So if I go down that road, I have to kind of really think about what's what is the most impacting, and at the end it came down to a lot of the ones that say they were most sensitive when it comes to consistency was timing related. So think about the interpretation of what is timely for you, what is timely for the next person, what culture are you from, where are you? And it's really funny working in New York and then working on Maui. And you're thinking, okay, we're now an island, right? Island, and it means people are a little bit more relaxed and whatever. But you have to remember that the guest that is now just checking into Maui is the one who comes out of Chicago, they come out of New York, they come out of LA, they are, in the wheelhouse of constantly, doing whatever they're doing at work, and then getting all the kids ready, and they are in a incredible cycle of, let's say, time pressure. So now you all of a sudden, when they come and they come to your pool or they come into the restaurant, And they're like, where's everybody? And it's like, well, hey, relax, it's island time. If that attitude comes across, you're losing them very quickly. So how do you really get them to relax? Well, when they know that things work. So when they come to that pool and they go and somebody seats them promptly, they get them set up, they make sure that they have what they need at this very moment, they're there. And then when they need something, they don't have to go and chase people down. There's always somebody who keeps an eye on them, or there's a way to connect. Even if with large properties where where you have to get a signal to somebody, or whether it is through an application, there are ways of getting me to come to you in the timely fashion. So the standards around timeliness are extremely important because that provides consistency regardless of where you are. So how long should it take for me to come and approach you when you come to a restaurant, to the pool? How long should before I come to your table? What would be? Those are those minimum standards that give me that. And the funny thing is, back to that scenario, if somebody who comes from New York and they sit there and at the pool, day one, they're like this, right? You can see. And then day two, they're like, oh, okay, it's actually working pretty good. Day three, bum. There's their whatever, iPad or book or whatever. It sits on their chest. They're snoring away, and they're like, you have just arrived. You have actually, now you're starting to relax. So what makes me relax is not you telling me to relax. It is things work. So the timing related things are probably one of the most sensitive ones, and then is the execution of the things that I know are there. So if you're a repeat guest, you have become used to certain things, right? You also may have special requests that are very clearly that we tracked. And you walk into that room. Are those special requests, or I wanted to have in the room? Is it in there, or does it somebody knock 10 minutes later and bring it? No, it is there when you get into the room. Those are those things that are just non-negotiable. So this consistency, the moment, and the real funny thing is, you may have everything working beautiful in this resort, but if I kick you off when you arrive and there's those three things you normally always have set up in your room this way. By the way, there's some really weird requests. but anyhow, and I'm not talking illegal or anything, but I remember one particular one. This was insane. They had to have 12 boxes of Kleenex in every single room, and they had to be pink. And you're like, okay, and then you have to go through and says, did we get 12? Oh my God, do we have enough of this? All this stuff without the panic always in the morning. But the issue is, the moment they arrive, and they see their stuff there, already 50% of the pressure is down when it comes to this consistency expectation. And then that carries through, obviously.
Oh, Jason, earlier you had said in a post, actually, luxury, and this is actually, I first heard this when I joined Four Seasons, is luxury is the absence of worry. And I have actually very much enjoyed this phrase my entire life, because when you don't need to worry. And what do we mean by worry? It means, just like Thomas, like you were saying, you're there to be greeted at the pool. I don't have to wonder, where do I sit? Where am I okay to sit here? No, I'm okay to sit here because the pool attendant has brought me and sat me down, and this is your space, and they've got me set up. And how do I order food? No, the server is there. They're there with the menu. They're watching and they're coaching you through these experiences. I show up to my room. I've made this request. Gosh, do you think they're going to do it? Yeah, there's a picture of bacon next to my bed. Yeah, I've had to do that, right? And so it's like, and it's not about, having that picture there. It's more of, did they hear me? Did they see me? Did they listen? Did they notice the things that I was saying? And really, when it comes down to it, that absence of worry isn't the absence of speed. It's not the absence of attention to detail, right? It is actually this sense of urgency of taking very personal ownership of the guest experience and of these standards, saying, look, I am going to make sure you have this. I'm going to make sure you experience it. And then we look to the guest for that tempo guide, right? Like, should I check on you every 5 minutes? And then eventually I'm going to come back. Is everything okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Okay. 10 minutes. Okay. You know what? I'm going to check on you every hour. or whatever that may be, you know, if we're at the pool. But it's learning so that guests can feel comfortable with you, around you, and then they're just confident and competent with you. And I always think that there's no better what's the word, honor that we can have in the hospitality industry than, you know, when we're on more of the line level role of when somebody asks for us, right? Oh, I'll wait for Adam, or no, can I sit in this person's section? And that is, I think, where hospitality gets its greatest moments, is when people can learn to rely on and trust others, because they're going to get it right. They have earned my trust, and they've done it through that consistency, and it's fantastic.
By the way, quick story, gotta say it. My wife waited tables through college, and Walter Payton came in. Nobody would wait on him. It was kind of like it towards the end of the shift, and my wife was like, no, I'll do it. She goes over there. They struck it. I don't know. And my wife's the ultimate hospitality person. He came in probably 4 or 5 more times, and he said, I want Christina. And he knew the owner, and there were 2 Christinas, and he would always try to give the wrong Christina. And he's like, no.
The real Christina.
The real
Christina. And of course, I'm like, Walter Payton. Wow. Sweetness.
That's the trust. Yeah, that's exactly it. And once you have it, there's another thing, I think, when it comes to the, the pacing and so forth. Restaurants are always the easiest ones to kind of quote, because everybody goes to a restaurant and you kind of get that whole feel if you have a very robotic waiter or somebody. And, standard is, I don't know, check in twice, at the table, or make sure that after you have served the meal, loop back within 5 minutes and make sure that everything's okay. Well, that is only half. The other half is, did you actually look at that table before you came back and checked the box that I'm just checking in with you, how is everything? Look at that. We haven't even touched the food because we're engaged in this great conversation and we haven't started. So I can't really give you feedback yet about whether the food is good or not. I don't know. So why would you check right now? Can you just look at the table and then you realize this is not the time to come? Is it when I come by and then, you serve it and then you have, everybody's digging in, but you're the one person that's just kind of pushing the food around and whatever. Well, go quietly to that one person, says, listen, I just want to make sure that everything came out the way it was, the way you ordered it, the way you wanted it to be prepared. That's the way, rather than the whole table, because this one person, and typically you get an answer of like, oh, no, I'm just not as hungry as I thought. Or you get once in a while says, this is really overcooked. Perfect. Boom. Quietly. Let's just go take care of you. There is a way to handle these things rather than always making you the most important person that comes because you interrupt everybody. Read the table. They're having a great conversation. Don't interrupt. They are in the middle of something. They're eating. You don't have to go and check, how's everything, and interrupt everybody. You don't have to do any of this. I'm going over there, though. There's this couple. They've known each other for a long, long time, and they are very happy with each other. But one's a talker and one is not. Okay, so that is not that unusual for couples. So I go over there and, start to engage with the talker, and you go, and, everybody's like this. It's great. He or she, who's not the talker, typically it's he, is like, okay, great. She's talking to you. It's perfect. She's happy. And it's like, we're having a great meal, because we all know 90% of having a great meal is how I felt when I was there. We can knock ourselves out about standards about the food and the quality. Yes, the food quality has to be great. But when it comes to truly the experience of saying, I had a great meal, you have the right mood. You had to feel good about who you were with, right? And there are so many emotional scenarios that play into, oh man, the food's just amazing here. That kind of comes out of their mouths. But the reality is they just had a good dining experience because they were able to relax and they were able to go and connect and do this rather than I just got to get through this meal. And I don't care how perfect this was. It's not great in my mind, but I'm just going to say all the right things. That is, when it comes to guest feedback, you got to keep that in mind as well. And then the other thing is, when it comes to the final part of this is, do you understand what the dynamics are at this table? And I cannot standardize all of this stuff, but I can go and I can say, hey, if you have grandpa and grandma, you've got their kids, and then you've got the 3 grandkids with them. And you walk up and you're trying to get this timing that you were talking about, Adam. You want to try to get that right. And you come and you go to this table and you see that everybody is engaged, but the kids are just really squirrely and whatever it is. Do you really want to go down this whole process of, I'm going to talk to you now about the specials, I'm going to set this whole thing up, and the kids are going crazy, and they always have to kind of figure out how to kind of keep them engaged? Or do you just go and say, listen, what would the kids want? How about this? We're going to take care of that. And you immediately, oh my God, that's great. Can we get this for, yeah, we just get this out of the way. And by the way, we've got also a couple of toys we can maybe bring over, or we can, whatever it may be. Nowadays, of course, they always bring their own iPads already. But the issue is that you are looking at who needs really the attention. And you know what happens? That grandpa and grandma, typically they're picking up the bill, by the way. They're the ones, they don't want to be the focus. So don't always come to them for everything they want. But if they see that you just took care of their grandkids and then their kids are starting to relax, they're like, yeah, this is a great meal. So do you want to standardize that, or do you want to go through it role playing it? So if you're not aware of this and you're just trying to check the box, okay, I did all those things, I did my table visits, I did exactly in the sequence that you asked me to provide that service in, it doesn't work at this table. So did you adapt at that moment? And did you just say, you know what, we're going to go work around this? Ask. Just ask, what is it that you'd like me to do? You want a little bit earlier? Just don't ask for every single thing, but try to set the tone. What is that you're after? And you know what it is? People tell you right away, or they show you in that body language, or this is what it is. But read the people, and this is where the standards is just the basis. The execution, the best way to set up a great system is the structure that you asked me at the very beginning for, is great training structure. A great training structure is really all about, okay, let me give you the big picture. What are the basic standards, whether it's a brand related, whether it's service related, product related, whatever, depending on what your position is that you come in for. Then we'll talk about what's around you. How can you interact with other departments? Because we're all dependent on each other. Try to check people in, and they ask you for an early check-in. And housekeeping is scrambling because there were so many late checkouts from the wedding from the night before and all this kind of stuff, and they're trying to turn these rooms. And you just say, I just want to make you happy. Oh, yeah, we got to make this happen for you. And we got your room. And then you put the pressure on the other department. They're like, do you understand what we're going through? So the ability to have on the housekeeping side to be able to say, listen, we can maneuver things around. We can prioritize this room, that room. It requires a flexibility, right? It requires that their standards are also flexible when it comes to that. And that you are able to go and execute with them together. And you don't make promises that they're just over the top and it's not going to be possible. But the other extreme is just saying, no, sorry, check-ins at 4. So there are this extreme or the other extreme. So you have to maneuver through a little bit. In order for you to be able to do that, you need to learn how to go and interact in a way that is sincere, but we can get the job done. I'm actually listening to you because I'm not so caught up every time, in the computer. I got to look at 5 different programs in order to make sure I got everything the way it is. No, I actually am listening to you. I'm looking at you, and we're going to figure this out together. This requires, again, a flexibility around you, a good communication, and good trust amongst departments to be able to get this executed, right? So, and then what to push and how to push it and how to communicate it and how to go and get things done and how to maneuver through difficult scenarios. That requires, yes, there's a training manager. There are training coaches maybe in the departments. There are people that help you, buddy system, whatever, anybody who can get you up to speed in regards to how we execute the standards here. All these things provide consistency. But at the end, you also have to be able to be flexible. And that is it's a trust thing, right? That goes all the way through. And again, If you have one department that's only checking the boxes and the ones aren't, it's not going to work. Both of them have to do that. So how do I learn a lot of this interactive stuff? Role play. And that is to me the absolute pivotal part, because role play, a good trainer or a good coach or a good anybody will go to, let's look at some real life scenarios that are actually happening. And we all know, I mean, you get a really grumpy guest and they're just like, whoa, how am I going to approach that? Role play through it of how to take the edge off and what is it. And if you give me 5 phrases that just make me even more aggravated, then this is getting worse and worse and worse. But if you just actually listen to me and you repeat back that one thing that I'm really after, and say, listen, we're going to get this done now. I'm not going to get it done exactly right now, but here's what I'm doing. I'm going to go set this up and let me get back to you within the next 15 minutes. Where can I reach you? How can I reach you? What's the best way for me to reach you? And then, so you don't have to commit all the time to everything. Even if you know it's complicated and you know, oh, there's like these two other departments, I need to make sure that everybody's aligned, that we get this there, rather than you making a false promise and just to get them out of your face and then you can't execute it. Those are all very, very basic things. But if you don't role play it and you don't go through that, then they won't know, oh, actually here, there is more flexibility than the other place I just worked in, because they would have never let me get through this. So this is all part of the culture. And so there is no just, here's your checks,
Well,
here's
one
your
of the
balances. It's just not going to work.
one of the things I wanted to touch on this topic is, where do managers confuse empowerment with abdication?
Well, I think the issue of empowering is, again, to set that framework we just talked about. I've got to give you good basic training to understand, so you understand here's what's expected. And here are the outcomes if you don't go down the road, by the way. So this is why we're doing it. So it's the why, right? So if I go through that, then I got to set up the tools around, and I've got to be able to have a bit of a checkpoint that comes through. Now, one of the most important checkpoints is that you're actually engaged. That manager that is supposed to run the floor is not tied up in the office because they've got so much administrative work that they've got to get done. There is, by the way, I think that's where AI is going to help quite a bit. I think that would really free up quite a bit of time if it's appropriately applied for people who are supposed to be out and about. Just think of a chef that sits, constantly in the office instead of being out there and helping with the cooking and all this kind of stuff, and training and seeing how the recipes are executed. All these things are essential. So abdication to me is when somebody just says, you've got all the tools, just go and do it, so that's the other one, where it's just, you don't stay engaged and you don't check things, you don't kind of walk and feel and have good conversations actually with guests, but employees, and they tell you, and the whole thing in the beginning, it was like, oh, don't say anything, because but again, it's that trust that you build up over time, and then they actually do tell you. Now, if an employee says, listen, I've got totally wrong information from my manager today, whatever, they just threw their manager under the bus, and you go back to that manager and you just say, listen, here's what I just heard about you, and I go on and on and on about is, what do you think that manager is going to do? They're going to get paranoid, like we talked about in the beginning, and they will make sure, oh, watch out, he's coming. It's just, let's make sure that everything is going. That is totally destructive. So it is a cycle. So if I want to have that open communication and I want to be able to see, I need to stay engaged. If I just say, this is all you, and the moment something goes wrong, or the report comes back and there's only, the compliance factors, then it's like, what's going on? Who's responsible? That is not management.
It can't be, right? I mean, like when it comes down to it, it really is. I think a lot of time hoteliers, or we hear this, go do it, go be authentic, go be you, with no guidance, no direction, no understanding of what a success in that interaction looks like or feels like. And I think it goes back to exactly what you're saying. If you haven't role played it, or you haven't modeled it, and we haven't trained on it, or I haven't given you feedback in a previous situation, right? Like I saw you handle a situation, I come back and said, I really liked the way that you did this, or I really, I saw where that was going, and it went off the rails because of that, and you're able to replay and show that. If we're not doing that as leaders, and we're just saying, yeah, go be nice, as I like to say, go be nice, go be friendly, what we're doing is we're setting it all up for failure, because we're eliminating ourselves or eliminating the tools and removing the very system that empowers excellence from our operation. By having those core defining elements, by being present, by role playing, by training, and ideally by just making sure that leaders are there, that is how we can then empower our team members to be great. I've always said that, through training and through my leadership experiences, it was, if I just hired people and told them to go be nice, I would get lots of versions of nice, right? Mm-hmm. This person used to work at Starbucks, and this person used to work at Nordstrom, and this person used to work at the Marriott down the street. I'm going to get those versions of nice. But when they come in and I can teach them what nice should look like and sound like and feel like here at this property, and then I can reinforce that. I can give, hey, great job. Wow, that was excellent. The way you interact with that guest, perfect. I love how you did this or did that. That is empowering that, because they now know confidently and competently, how do I execute? How do I do this? And then their personality can really shine through, right? Then it can really go through. But you'll never get there if you're a leader. You will never get there if you're not on the floor. If you're not engaged,
that's exactly it. I mean, there's no way. If you don't see it, you can't. And then it's very difficult. So I only hear from you when it's bad. And then in the meeting, you're going to give me some generic kind of feedback. That's not the most powerful feedback. Is exactly that one-on-one, that on the fly, and you don't have to make it a huge deal. Even if it's just, listen, I just saw that what you did, that was awesome. That goes a long way, and it's so easy because that's how you would feel, right? So why would you not do that to the person that's around you, that you're dependent on, by the way, to execute all that stuff?
Yes. We just had a comment from Catherine Ainsworth that said, treat others the way you want to be treated, or the way you want to be treated yourself. And it just goes back to that core philosophy that has guided Four Seasons and so many other great brands throughout the world, of just how should we be treated, and really putting ourselves in those guest shoes, the employee shoes, and putting ourselves in that interaction, saying, what would I need to be successful? What would I want as a guest to feel heard and seen? And if we can authentically answer those questions, hospitality will be better for it.
Yeah. The philosophy it's always great. It's when it's on paper, or if you're looking at it and there's great statements, but if you don't live those statements, it lasts very little.
Very true.
Yeah. Let's wrap up with one last question. Since we are talking about standards on Beyond the Binder, what did you measure or wish you could have measured to know standards were actually being delivered?
Yeah, well, I think we talked at length about the direct observations and so forth. I think the hardest piece is the guest that doesn't give you feedback. And I think if you just kind of look at the feedback scenario that we actually in the very beginning, I think you were talking about it, Adam, when it comes to all the guest surveys and the feedbacks you get from, all the audit systems and all this kind of stuff, that is one piece, because it gives you people who want to give you feedback, and some of them, quite frankly, are extremely over the top positive, and some of them are extremely negative. You have to kind of maneuver through that and kind of go down the middle a little bit of what is the most common feedback and where are my trends and so forth, and can I identify those. When it comes to the thing that bothered me the most is if we had also, as you're aware of, we had a glitch system, right? So a glitch system allows you, so the moment you see something goes wrong, and you're that employee on the floor and something didn't just, even if they tried to resolve it, they knew when they walked away this was not resolved. Okay, then you report it basically as a glitch, so that means other people are aware of it. Yeah, of course, immediately within a department is one thing, but that person left this department, they are now going back to their room, or they go into another restaurant, or whatever it may be. So you have to have some kind of a feedback center where I know they just went through something that was not, this is too, they're not really happy. So I gotta have a system where I have the chance on the other department to pick this up. Now, am I going to go and now rehash everything that went wrong because I know what went wrong here and there, and that when they arrive in my department? No, but I'm going to pay extra attention to them, and they're going to kind of see what else to turn them around, and we kind of work together. Remember, the one thing is, so you asked me if the ones I missed the most are the people who left the hotel, who never gave us any feedback. We didn't have anything in regards to any glitches, but they never returned.
Oh.
To me, that is the losing part. This is where, so I was always very glad when people gave us feedback. Some of them was not great. Okay, so we can fix it. We can do something about it at least. Or we can at least apologize. There's things you can actually do. But if you never hear, and if you think about yourself, you get inundated with requests for surveys. You buy a freaking pair of underwear nowadays, and there's a survey in the freaking thing. You say, how did you like your underwear? This is insane. It's over the top, right? Because it's all automated. So it just keeps coming at you. So there's this survey fatigue that I've been talking about for years. That this is, we need to keep this in mind. So the best feedback we can get is directly on the floor. It's directly from people when we go and we have these conversations. But we got to figure out how we document it and how we track it in order to, and not make it too cumbersome. So any tool that will help with that is extremely welcome, because it makes it easy. Maybe something I can quickly, put in there as a note, and rather than, oh no, I got to go through this administrative process in order to do this. All these things have to be considered. So I don't think we ever got that perfect. You asked me what I'm missing. That's that one piece that was always like, ooh, I wonder what we've actually missed there.
Oh, so great. I mean, it's coming back down to, if I can, being present on the floor and being able to get the data. We have such a better capacity nowadays to get more data, but the real question really comes into, what do we want to do with it? How is it going to help us better our operation? How is it going to help us better connect with our guests and not pull us away from them? Right? When it really comes down to it, everything in hospitality should be empowering us to get closer to our guests, to get closer to the experience for the operation. And it's such a great time to be in hospitality, to watch, that technology and that data become a little bit more and more available. And it's been awesome. But I'm loving this concept as well of saying, how do we get better at really engaging with those guests? How do we really make sure that we are catching those? The worst feedback that we get is the feedback we don't get. Right? The people that just walk away and say, because they're going to tell everyone.
Sure.
Oh, how was your dinner at X restaurant? You know what?
It
wasn't what it's all cracked up to be, right? Or it's not all what it should have been. But if our team members can be on the lookout for that, and our leaders are there and say, they didn't eat all their food. What's going on? Let's go back and check. Was everything okay? You said it was fine. You table touch, but you didn't eat the $120 steak. What's going on? Right? Like, what do we do here? How do we do that? And by being present and by being available and showing true hospitality, that is how our operations continue to succeed 100%. Oh, it's so great.
Yeah. At the end, we're all people. Yeah, and it's like, how would we feel?
A good thing to remember, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, before we turn off here, I do want to, I don't know if you guys saw this, but going back to Catherine Ainsworth, does that ring a bell with you, Thomas? She says, "Hi, remember
Oh my
me
gosh.
from Maui?"
Maui
Oh
2005.
my gosh. Catherine. Yes, yes, yes. Aloha.
Yeah, right. Well,
That is fantastic. Yeah. Oh my God. I tell you, I had so many great experiences in Hawaii and Maui. I mean, what a incredible crew of people. And it was, again, getting into this whole sense of the culture, the best sides of the culture, and how you can convert that into service. It was it was very humbling in some scenarios because people can be extremely genuine, but I've also found people in completely different areas that are very, very genuine and wanted to do it as well. But there's that Hawaiian warmth and
oh,
that just it's very special.
there's
So,
nothing like
yeah,
Hawaii. There's
yeah.
nothing like the aloha.
So nice call out. Thank you,
Oh,
Catherine.
Well,
amazing.
it was a great conversation. Thank you, Thomas, for spending time with us. I know you're not as busy you used to be, but still.
I'm loving it.
Thank you so much for spending the time with us. It has been wonderful, and I know that from me personally and from everyone, that as soon as we announced, hey, we're going to have the Thomas Steinhauer join us, it was really just wonderful, and I think a testament to the incredible career and leadership legacy that you've left, of just how many people weren't just saying, oh, this is going to be great. It was, oh my gosh, I've connected with this human being, and I revere everything that you've done. So it's been wonderful to see those comments, and it was great to have you here. Thank you for joining us, taking some time out of making us pull you out of retirement for a little bit. But the knowledge is timeless, and the experience is certainly well appreciated. So thank you very much.
Well, this is very, very humbling, and to everybody who's listening, it's got to come from the heart, and in my case, it always has. Sometimes, it was tough, but that's the way to go through life. So
Yes.
I wish you all the very best. Thank you guys for inviting me. It's very, very nice. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
But you're doing some really great things. So thank you, everybody, and thanks
All
for
right.
having me on.
Thanks,
All right.
Jason. Thanks,
All
Tom.
Okay. Till next time.
Thank you.